Bryan-College Station investors, welcome to your March 2025 housing market update. But we're gonna go over more than just data today, guys, because I'm gonna tackle the A&M pause on enrollment. That's right, the headline that A&M announced that they're no longer growing their student body for the next 5 years. I'm gonna tell you what that means to your investing portfolio. I'm gonna give you data and the inside scoop. It's on no one else's radar. That means this is exclusive to you, my viewers, because you know I jumped into the data, and I'm gonna give you the real on what's going on with A&M and their pause on enrollment. Of course, I'm covering all that and more on your favorite channel, Investing in Bryan-College Station, where I help you grow your wealth through real estate in my favorite towns of Bryan and College Station. But you might be wondering, who are you? Well, my name is Greg Schwartz. I'm a Marine Corps pilot turned investor turned real estate agent, and I have my entire portfolio growing right here in Bryan and College Station. My wife and I run long-term and mid-term rentals here in town. I also acted as a property manager where I had 150 units under my portfolio. And today I help clients just like you grow their wealth right here in Bryan and College Station. So let's jump into the numbers so you know what's going on in the market. And then we're gonna talk about A&M's pause on enrollment, so stay tuned. If you remember back from my last market update, I mentioned that January showed a shift towards a buyer's market. This is a trend that was opposite from what we saw from about August to December. And guess what? We continue to sail towards a buyer's market in a very major way based on February's data. In fact, our active inventory surged 31% year over year, now sitting at 1,182 active units. This led to an increase of months of inventory, and that's the number that we use to determine if it's a buyer or seller's market. So we really focus on months of inventory. Well, we had a surge by 10% month over month. Since January, we went from 4 months of inventory to February's 4.4. And this is important because we were in a very buyer market back in August of 2024, and that's when months of inventory sat at 4.6. So we're nearly there, and we're growing pretty dang aggressively. Of course, as you can imagine, sales are slowing down. Our sales are down year over year 12.3%, and all of this is likely due to economic worries based on how the economy is going to react to our new presidency, tariffs being put into place, of course the stubborn inflation rate, and all this is leading to higher interest rates. Everything is just kind of coming to a halt right now as we figure out what's happening. But there is some good news. Here in Bryan and College Station, our prices are fairly stable. If you remember when I said our appreciation in our median home price from 2023 to 2024 was 4%, well, on a month-to-month basis, things vary a little bit more. So based on February 2025 compared to 2024, we're down 1%, and that's not a huge decrease. Our median price is now at $300,000. The big headline is that Texas A&M is pausing enrollment for the next 5 years, meaning they will not grow the number of students currently enrolled in A&M for 5 straight years. And this, of course, is because they've grown extremely fast. In fact, according to their own data, in the last 10 years, they've increased the student body by nearly 30%, and the infrastructure just hasn't kept up. So they're gonna press pause, they're gonna fix some things, then of course, presumably in 5 years, continue to grow the school again. Well, the good news here is our little university here in College Station, our little TAMU, is in such high demand that after COVID, when everybody thought that the higher education would go away, that everybody would go virtual, we still grew by 30%. That is huge. Now, when you look at the year over year growth, that means that our student body, which currently sits around 78,987 students, has grown by 1,685 students per year. That's over the last 10 years. And keep in mind, this is the entire network of A&M, so it includes the satellite campuses, but that is the only data I could find readily available. So we're growing by about 1,600 to 1,700 students every single year. Now, let's look at the growth of Bryan and College Station Metro overall. Currently, our population is at 249,624 of all my sources in the description below. Over the last 5 years, our average growth is 3,777 people. Well, the college students actually count towards our population. So if the college is growing by 16 to 1700 and our population is growing by, call it 3,800, that means that 40 to 45% of our population growth is attributed to college students. So when I think through how will this pause on enrollment affect our investments, I think it has a lot to do with supply and demand. And if we slow our population growth by 40%, that is really gonna slow down the demand. Okay, well, let's look at the other side of this equation. Let's look at supply. The good news is there's some really good data on A&M's own website. It's all about the permits that are pulled every single year throughout Bryan-College Station. I focus specifically on multifamily because the majority of our student housing will be built in apartment complexes, and that's the easiest one to say, hey, this is probably or predominantly student housing. So for the last 20 years, that's a pretty good range. Bryan-College Station has had roughly 689 multifamily units permitted per year. So right around, call it 700. Well, over the last 5 years, the average number of multifamily units permitted is 375. That is a 45% decrease in the number of multifamily that have been built over the last 5 years compared to the average. So our supply has been relatively restricted over the last few years. Okay, so maybe we're not that out of whack. Maybe if our supply is pretty dang low and our demand will be dropping, we'll stay at an equilibrium. All right, so that's pretty decent news. Our supply is restricted, our demand is restricted. If we lower both at an equivalent amount, we should see some balance, some equilibrium in the markets. So therefore, we shouldn't have a major impact on, let's say, our rent rates or our vacancies or the prices of our investment assets. And to further prove this point, let's look back at a recent event that threw supply and demand out of balance, specifically with student housing. This happened in 2016 and 2017. Back then, we brought on a lot of student multifamily. Things like The Rise came online and Park West. This flooded the market with an additional, over the average, 1,500 more units than on average. And guys, it did in fact have an impact on the rents here in Bryan-College Station. We saw vacancies increase as much as 4%. We saw rent rates go flat or in some instances actually decrease. And we saw student housing and multifamily sit on the market longer than normal. But here's the kicker, guys. It wasn't all multifamily and all student housing that were affected. It was the ones that were not professionally managed. It was those landlords that were not responding to maintenance requests. It was those landlords that simply just thought they could leave this rental out there and let it appreciate. That is not how you run your portfolio. If you're one of my viewers, you will not do that. You're gonna take care of your tenants, you're gonna take care of your property, and as a result, you will not feel nearly the effects of the upcoming decrease in demand. And that is how you will survive this, guys. It's only gonna last for a year or two. I promise you, if there's a decrease in enrollment, then the building supply will also slow down. I promise you this will not have a major effect on our economy. And the good news is A&M is still in high demand.
I got a pro tip for you. Not every landlord runs their property like they should. In fact, as we see this decrease in demand, I bet you there's gonna be properties that sit vacant. They're gonna be under market rent. There's gonna be landlords that think you can't make money in Bryan-College Station. I know, it's ridiculous. But the point is, there's gonna be some great discounted properties, which is a great opportunity for me and you. But don't share that with anybody else, so we get all the good deals.
And so now I want to answer your client-based question because I can already see it forming in your mind. But Greg, I am a parent of an Aggie. And Greg, I want to buy a student rental in Bryan-College Station while my son or daughter gets their 4-year degree. Is that still a good idea? And the answer is absolutely 100% yes. It is a great idea because you are comparing renting to buying. And when you rent, you throw away money every single month for 4 to 5 years. But when you buy, and you fill that house with roommates, those roommates cover the cost of the mortgage. The principal payment gets paid down every single month, and that house, on average, appreciates. Even in a slowing market, you still see appreciation. So if you are one of my parents of one of my Aggies here in town, 100%, you should definitely consider buying. But make sure you're buying with someone who understands the market, someone who understands that there is going to be a change, that there's a shift going on. Buy with an agent, maybe like myself. If you're curious about buying here in Bryan-College Station, all my contact information is in the description below. I would love to help you out. Click on the calendar link, schedule a time to chat with me. We'll have a buyer or seller consultation, and I will help you grow your wealth through real estate here in Bryan-College Station. Like, subscribe, and until next time, take it easy.